one of the things that we've been trying to do with the NSF is actually increase standardization with the common disclosure form. And they want to use this science CV, especially as it pertains to biosketches and current and other pending support. Now, if you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at it, it has a lot of pros. So we really think that it's going to be valuable, and it's going to make kind of the submission process attached to these grants, more reliable. The problem is it takes some upfront investment in it. So this is not one of those things that you want to try to complete in the 11th hour. All right, so I was an academic for 21 years. Proposal was due 5 o'clock local time. At 4:59 p.m., I was pushing the button. All right, you don't want to do this, with this science CV. So the earlier that you can look at it and start, filling that out for yourself as well as your colleagues, we ask that you do that. It will be required for the NSF starting October 2023. All right, so you have plenty of runway, in order to start looking at this. So we're going to encourage that you do it and really get an early start. So that was the first thing that I want to talk about with the PAPG. Now let's talk about supplemental awards and equipment.
Where'd it go?
In a nutshell, we need your proposals and your supplements. Let me say that again. We need for this community to submit proposals and supplements. All right? That's what we want in a nutshell. So last year, a DCL came out, 22069. And thank you, HBCU community. I mean, a lot of you took advantage of that. You put a lot of work on us, because we came in May, we had to have a lot of these decisions out in August, but it was work, that was well worth it. We want you to encourage you to continue, to submit, to these different opportunities. Now, with this particular DCL, it really wasn't pointing per se to tracks within the HBCU program, but it was pointing toward the PAPG. And a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of things that you can apply to in terms of supplementals as well as proposals, in the PAPG. And the nice thing about it, you can submit it year round. There's no deadline. The only thing that we would encourage for you to do is give us a call and have a conversation. Maybe submit a 1-page white paper before you can submit it, just to make sure that it's in line, with that particular project. So some of the things that I just wanted to mention while I was up here. Of course, when you're dealing with supplements to current awards, that's always in play. So that's essentially additional support to complete the projects that you have. But it has, of course, have to be in scope, of the particular proposal. And that's something that, once again, is mentioned in the PAPG. Another thing is career life balance supplemental funding. And, this is really in place for, individuals who have dependent care issues or just family, just life, habits. So let's say that you have a postdoc that's working in your lab and that individual needs to step away for a period of time. You can apply, to this particular supplement to actually replace that individual while they're away, for a specified amount of time. So it's there, and you would submit it through the HBCU program. We would take a look at it, and then we would fund it accordingly. Some other things, we started to move, into the proposals. Of course, you have the goalie that has always, been out there, and that's dealing with industry as well as academic, partnerships. They can come in two forms. So either as a proposal typically written in conjunction with someone else, or as a supplement. That's something that you want to take a look at. Also something called the FASAD. I know I'm using these acronyms. I don't want to kind of spell out the whole, thing for what it means. But once again, it's dealing with science and engineers with disabilities, providing them with the equipment that they need in order so they can carry out, their work. You've all heard of these rapids. Anytime that you have like a severe urgency that you need to get data. So, during the pandemic, we received a lot of rapids came into the NSF. This is something that you can also apply for. We also have the EAGRs. So you have the cutting edge, type work, exploratory, that's kind of, on the cusp there. That's something that you can also apply for. And if you have projects that work between a lot of different type of disciplines, you have the raise, proposals, as well. And then outside of that, if you look at the PAPG, you got planning grants, you got conference grants, equipment grants, as well as proposal type opportunities. So it's plenty of things that you can apply to in the PAPG, and this is the point that I'm trying to drive, to you outside of the HBCU-UP solicitation. And we really want this community to take a look at those in the PAPG and, submit your proposals. The third thing that I want to kind of hit on. I don't think I'm adjusting here.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
How many supplement one can apply for?
How many supplements can I apply for at one time?
During the course of the grant?
You can apply, and you can apply again. Carlita, would you want to let me put you on the spot for that, you being the lead.
You can apply
Yeah.
for supplemental funding, of course, mostly on an annual basis, and that request does have a maximum amount up to 20% of the award, but it's as needed, and the justification will really be important. So we are keenly aware that the funding amount of the standard grant, it was a maximum, and so we're really strongly vetting any subsequent supplement requests. So it's possible to re-engage us on an annual basis.
So that 20% is just like, if you apply for let's say, first year, it's 20%, and then if you apply next year, will that be 20%, or it's like you use your chance?
So the question, again, for the benefit of the virtual audience as well, and maybe even for the group, the question is the 20% for a supplemental request, is that considered on a per request basis or over the life of the grant? It is on a per request basis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the things that I would like to add to it is that, individuals often come and ask for a supplement, and they have quite a bit of money, left in their proposals. What we would prefer for you to do is to spend that money down first and then ask for the supplement. Keep in mind that you can move things between line items. Really, the only area that you need permission is the participant support cost. I believe that was it.
Is moving money, resources out of participant support
Right.
costs. You need to have approval for that.
Exactly. But, please don't come and engage us, with a 20% supplement and you have $500,000, in your coffers. We're really looking for you to spend that money down first and then engage us at that time. Okay, got it? Well, you're welcome. Thank you for the question. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned about it. In that grant, you mentioned about briefly that not necessarily ideas shared between the industry could be actually as a PI, I need help from the industry that I can outsource part of the research I'm going to do. Is it actually possible under this industry, university or institutions type grant?
So could you ask that question one more time? I had a hard time. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
So you briefly mentioned about the industry academic type of grant.
Right.
And then could you please clarify that if I am actually as a PI, IPAs belong to me, but I need to, I don't have the capacity to do such a research, but I need industry help.
Right.
Like outsource part of it. Is it actually considered as an industry academic type of grant?
Right. So there's two ways in which you can actually apply for a goalie. The first one is if you've identified a partner and you guys have, submitted a proposal to the NSF, you can do it under the PAPG goalie and have it funded that way. So you've already kind of thought that out. The other way would be as a supplement. So let's say that you're working on a particular project and then you bring on an industrial partner to work with you, then you can apply for a goalie supplement to support the effort at that, at that point.
Thank you for clarification.
All right. You're so welcome. Yeah.
So I have a question about the limit for goalie supplement. Do we need to follow the 20% by the limit
Right, so, right, well, it's my understanding that as long as you stay under the 20%, it doesn't have to go out for external review. If it goes over the 20%, then it has to go out for an external review. That's correct, Carlita?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And if you could, for the virtual audience, repeat the question so they understand the context of your response.
Sure, sure. So the gentleman was asking about a particular goalie and the supplement and the amount essentially that can actually be applied for. So we were just saying that if it's less than 20%, it pretty much stays in-house. However, if it's over 20%, the request, then we have to send it out for external reviews.
And that applies to all supplements.
That would apply to all supplements, yes.
I want to underscore the importance of making sure that in all of these opportunities that you're interested in and you're considering, to reach out to your program officer first. We will consider all of your requests on a case-by-case basis and give you the content that you need on whether or not you're strategically positioned to submit a competitive supplemental proposal. Understand that supplements are still proposals, right? They will still be reviewed and vetted, whether it's internally or go out for external review. So we know there's a few different scenarios on a case-by-case basis. I would just encourage you to reach out to your program officer.
Yep. All right, any other questions before we move on?
If your award is in a no-cost extension, is that still eligible for a supplement?
So the question is, if the award is in a no-cost extension, is it still eligible for a supplement? And my understanding is yes, right? No? A case-by-case basis.
On a case-by-case basis. I will say this, as we consider your proposals, we have to make recommendations on your behalf. Certainly, I want to underscore that it is not us as program officers that will confer this decision upon you. And so our justification for your need needs to be informed by your justification for your need. So typically in a no-cost extension, that rationale and justification needs to be much stronger, because by virtue of being in a no-cost extension, you are saying you have the resources that you need. What you need is time, right? What you need is time. And so engage with your program officer when you're in a no-cost extension phase. While it's not impossible, we want to underscore the likelihood of that actually happening. We want to be honest about the likelihood of that happening.
What is the turnaround for a supplemental award? So if you already know, like, year 3, I don't have enough funding to fully implement what I said I was going to implement in year 3. I already know, like, it ain't there, and I need the resources. Should I apply in year 2, or are you gonna say you need to get to that event and then apply, and then it's kind of a little too late? So, like, yeah, so when should, like, what is the turnaround for a supplement? Maybe that's just a
So with a supplement, there's a couple of things that need to happen. One, of course, the money needs to be spent down. That's one piece of it. The other piece would be, essentially where you are with the project and what you're planning to do. What do you need in order to complete the project? So with that being said, we typically see requests for supplements kind of coming toward the end, per se, of the award. But then it goes back to, what Carly was saying is that it's really case by case. Call us, let's have a conversation, and even if you're talking to a program officer, we meet every week, we bounce it around in there, and then we're able to get back with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, you said that the supplement is a per request base, right? So basically, that means you can submit one every year, or just one for the whole, project period?
Keep in mind that when we're dealing with supplements and we're talking about, the PAPG, really they're to wrap projects up, in a sense. So if you're constantly coming back to us for a supplement, it's almost like you're kind of expanding the project. So we would want to know why you're essentially doing that. Why can't you just write another proposal? you know. But we don't want to get in a situation where you're doing no cost extension supplements, no cost extension supplements, no cost extension supplements, you know, in order to kick the project out. So you got to be real careful with that, and it goes back to what we're saying. We really evaluate these things on a case-by-case basis. We're following your annual project reports. We know where you're essentially at and what you need to wrap your project up.
And if I may add one point, every supplement that you submitted should be within the original scope of work
Right.
that you've proposed. So your new ideas
Right.
are not appropriate for
Exactly.
the supplement. Okay.
You need to apply for a new award, essentially. Right. Good question. Thank you.
My question is for the non-cost extension, maximally, how many years we can have?
Oh, good question. So the question is for no-cost extensions, you know, how many maximum years can you have? So the first one is administrative. So essentially, you can request that. It really doesn't need our approval. It just needs a review. That's for a year. The second one requires, you know, our approval, you know, so that can be an additional year. And then a third one, which really then goes to the NSF, you know, can extend out, you know, an additional year. You know, so 3 years, yeah. Yeah, and all this information is found in the PABG. Mhm. All right, any other questions? A lot of questions around supplements and no cost extensions here, okay. Just one more time. So the question is, can supplements be used for salaries? We have had supplemental requests to hire postdocs. You know, we have that in order to complete the projects. Regarding PI salaries, I think once again, it's going to go back to what you say case by case. Yeah, we really need to understand the need and why you need that supplement, you know, in order to, you know, complete that project. Yeah, anything you want to add, Carlita? Is that kind of right on? Okay. All right. Any more questions about supplements?
This is for a no-cost extension.
Okay, all right.
Can a PI request for a short-term extension, let's say 3 months? This is for the purpose of just reconciliation of the accounts, because some of the funds may have been utilized after the deadline. So just for reconciliation of that. The work has been done, but just for the reconciliation.
Right, so it's my understanding, once you go inside the system, so he wanted to know, in terms of no-cost extension, if you didn't want to do a full year, could you do it for only 3 months, just to kind of reconcile things or wrap things up. So if you go inside of the system, you can actually select, you know, yeah, the time for the no-cost extension. I believe it's 3, 6, 9, and 12 that you can actually select once you're inside for the no-cost extensions. Yeah.
My question is about the final report that conclusion of the project. So what are the expectations for the, say, before you're actually going on a low-cost extension, the last year of your project? Is that considered like a final report, or what are the expectations in terms of reporting for the original timeline of the grant versus the final after this wrapped up?
So actually, I'm going to deal with final reports, so I'm going to hold that to the end. So the question was about final reports and expectations for that. All right, so I need to, I'm getting the cue that I need to, kind of, wrap this thing up. So another area that I wanted to talk about just real briefly, project evaluations, of course, project evaluations are very, very important. As a matter of fact, if you read the solicitation, evaluation, evaluator, or derivative is actually mentioned 70 times, in the HBCU-UP solicitation. So it's very, very important, to us, that you actually be able to track and set up indicators in order to evaluate, your particular projects. Please keep in mind when you're talking about the external evaluator that is someone independent, doesn't necessarily mean the individual needs to be outside of your institution, all right? They just can't be senior personnel working on your particular project. We really need an independent, type evaluation, from them. Where I wanted to spend some time at is talking about these annual and final reports. All right, and this is very important to us. So one of the reasons why we need your information is because a lot of times we take nuggets and things from your reports in order to report that, either to the front office, or they might take that and go to Congress. So what we're seeing is really one or two extremes. So either reports are coming in and they're pretty comprehensive, or the reports are coming in and they can be a little skimpy. One-liners. So we really need you to take some time, and really, complete these project reports. One of the things that, that stood out to us is that you should address progress in all activities of the projects. So we need to know what you're doing. We understand that maybe, objectives 3 and 4 might build on 1 or 2. Let us know that so we can know where you are in the project. And then you have this other piece with accomplishments and outcomes. We need you to give us something there. And then you have those impacts, all those questions that you answer. We understand that you might not have any, something for every single one, but for the ones that you do, give us something more than a one-liner. That's 5 or 6 words. Give us something that we can really, report on. Another thing, keep in mind with these reports, they're not cumulative. All right, so you're only reporting on that particular project year. All right, so if it's year 2 or 3, you're only reporting on those particular years. The other piece that we need for you to understand has to do when it's actually due and when it's overdue. All right, so let's say you have a project that runs January 1st through December 31st. All right, so you're going to get something on January 1st saying that this project is due. 90 days from there, you're going to get something that says that this project is overdue. We need your report on January 1st because we need 90 days to review this report, especially keeping in mind our workload. Now, this is the flip side of it. Please keep in mind, if you take it to March 31st and you submit that report, we still have 90 days to review your report. So that can hold you up on no-cost extensions as well as other critical processes, throughout, the NSF. All right, so the due period with that example that I gave you is actually January 1st through March 31st. But we need you to get it in when? January 1st, to give us ample time to review it so that we can move forward. Everybody understand that?
So, but the reminder email we usually get comes in on January 1st.
Right.
It's kind of scary because it's like, okay, now we need to scram 2 days, right, to get it. So is there a move maybe to put that reminder email a bit before January 1st so that we have a week to sort of get it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That'd be great.
I'll jump in here just to say that the reporting requirements are managed through a different entity in the National Science Foundation. So you will hear from our colleagues from the Division of Grants and Agreements where that reporting update is filtered through. We have shared with our colleagues the way in which this might be perceived on your end, but until that is resolved for the entire organization, every PI falls into this category of receiving that update and notification at that time period. So we have expressed this, but as of right now, that's the due date. However, you have the benefit of now knowing. So please heed that request. I see there's still a number of hands, and just by virtue of time, I know the team has prepared a number of activities for our time today. So if you could hold on to your questions, we will be here and available throughout the next couple of days, and we might have time at the end to come back to some of your questions, but I'd like to just turn it over to the team so we can continue with the next part.
Okay. All right, so that was annual reports. Now let's talk about final reports. All right, so once again, when you're dealing with the final report is cumulative. So it's not based on the 3 or 4 or 5 years. It's whatever that project report is. Now, earlier the question was asked, how does a no-cost extension kind of plays into this? So let's say that your project report is due, your final project report is due December 31st, all right? And you submit for a no-cost extension, and it is approved. What will happen is that final report is then kicked out, so your annual report will immediately become due at that time. All right, so that's how that works. So in terms of the final report, understand that when you submit a final report, it signifies that the scope of work for the project has been completed, and you don't anticipate any more work, any more funding per se is needed to complete that particular project. All right, so once you hit that button for that final report, the final report is over. Now, with the final report, it becomes due the day after, but you actually have 120 days to submit the final report and a final outcomes report. After 120 days, it then becomes overdue. And then once again, what will happen is it'll delay no-cost extensions, as well as you're trying to apply for other proposals. And even if you're on the proposal with someone else, it will prevent them from submitting their proposals as long as that's in place. All right, so you want to make sure that you get those in. The last thing, and then I'm turning back over to my colleague, budget spend down. Okay, repeat after me. Spend your money. Okay.
All of it.
All of it. Okay? We don't need anything coming back to us. If it comes back to us, it sends a signal that the HBCU-UP program cannot spend their money. Okay? So we need for you to spend your money. We do know we're coming off the pandemic in 2020. It was a lot of challenges around that. We get that. But now, since things are rearing back up, we need for you to start spending down that money. All right? All right? So things to keep in mind. All right? We need for you to submit good competitive proposals so that we can fund them. All right? So we need your proposals, coming in. The other thing is we need for you to report on your good outcomes. All right? And then the last thing is we need for you to spend your funds in a timely manner. And as Carlita said, we'll be here, through the duration, of the meeting. So please engage us, and we'll be able to answer any questions that, that I wasn't able to get to at this time. All right, so team, no cost extensions and supplements. So we got to keep in mind. All right, take care.
No, that's good. Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. I have just a couple of other things I wanted to share around collaboration opportunities. We've been approached by different government agencies as well as a couple of international organizations that are very interested in partnering with historically black colleges and universities. When they're reaching out and they're exploring their own efforts of engaging underrepresented students and faculty, they're connecting with us because of the programs that we're already supporting and funding. So we're working on trying to establish more formal collaborative opportunities, and we want to make sure that you are aware of them so you can govern yourselves accordingly and see which of these may be of interest to you and one you may seek to take advantage of. A couple include one from the Sao Paulo Research Foundation in Brazil, the Environmental Protection Agency, known as EPA, the National Security Agency, and the Department of Veteran Affairs, just to name a few. These are those who have approached us within the last 4 months. From the Sao Paulo Research Foundation, and I won't go through this in detail with time permitting, and we'll make copies of these available to you and more information. They're basically funding in Brazil. Each state has its own research funding agency. And so the Sao Paulo Research Foundation is particular for that particular region in Brazil. Basically, what they're seeking, visiting researcher grants, research fellowships, opportunities. And so it's important if you're interested, maybe seeking of connecting with them. If your research goals and ideals are similar, there may be opportunities to connect. There's funding that may be available in terms of mobility grants, which covers travel and research for team members over a period of time. They're also interested in sort of exchange types of opportunities in which they may send faculty and students to your institution well, you send faculty or students to theirs. And so those opportunities are coming up and they are available. Also in terms of the types of programs, we'll talk a bit more information regarding those. From the Department of Veteran Affairs, again, very similar. Many may not know that they have a really strong research opportunities that are available, particularly in the area of biomedical sciences. So again, if that happens to be an area of research for you and your institution, and particularly if it connects to your project, again, there may be opportunities there. They're seeking students, particularly students from underrepresented in underrepresented fields and students from underrepresented backgrounds. Particularly those in HBCUs who are interested in conducting research experience. They're interested in exploring those opportunities with you. Again, there are opportunities there, and one of the things as we're sharing in terms of looking at those opportunities, they're also seeking in terms of research supplements and ideals as well. And then also, again, they have 21 research sites across the country, and so some of those may be in your vicinity or an area that may not pose a great travel burden to your faculty and or students to participate. So again, if you know of some in the particular regions in which you're based, again, those may be of interest to you. Also from the Environmental Protection Agency, again, also very interested in particular in certain regions. I didn't have a slide specifically for them, but they are also already engaged with some HBCUs. They have a strong partner with Lincoln University in which they're participating, and they're seeking to expand their opportunities. So again, all of those are coming up, and one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to conduct some webinars in the spring and into the early summer. So we'll be sending through our notification channels and saying, hey, we have an opportunity for a webinar from the Sao Paulo Research Foundation. Here's the time and place. We'll have those recorded and posted where they can come in and talk more specifically about the opportunities to see what may be of interest to you. And we'll be doing that for all of those other government agencies as well. And so that's going to be forthcoming. We just ask that you stay tuned and be mindful of it, because there may also be opportunities for some of your budget supplemental requests or some things of that nature. Maybe something, again, if it's aligned with your project, that may be of interest, and it may be an opportunity to help provide some additional support, particularly with getting students involved in some of the research at those respected institutions. And then lastly, as we wanted to share a bit in this segment around service opportunities, we're always searching for panel reviewers. In terms of to become part of the process, understanding, have an opportunity to contribute to the work, reviewing proposals for other projects and things of that nature. And so we're seeking those who are interested to serve. We'd love to hear from you and to see about opportunities for you to become engaged. There are also opportunities to serve on the Interagency Personnel Assignment Act. We refer to those as IPAs. Similarly, would be considered sort of a rotator position, but I have come on board under the IPA Assignment Act. And so I'm from the University of Memphis. My background is in STEM education, where I was also serving as Assistant Dean of Student Success in the College of Education. But I'm now serving here under this IPA agreement. Again, I'm in my 4th month now in this role and very excited to be here. But those are other opportunities that will become available. Again, as you may be of interest and have opportunities to serve, please know that these are coming up and may be available to you. So, for our last segment of our session today, we've invited a group of PIs to come up and to share with us a bit about their experiences and their projects, just to connect and get a sense of from peer to peer in terms of how they've been managing their projects, some opportunities that they've overcome, as well as challenges that they face, but also to hear some of the successes as well. So we ask if you would please join me as they make their way to the tables. We have Drs. Anshu Arora from the University of District of Columbia. We have Dr. Sheila Peters from Fisk University, Dr. Indu Sharma from Hampton University, and Dr. Maurice Eddington from Florida A&M University. As they make their ways to the panel, please give them a hand as they come and to get situated. So what we'd like to do first is to have each of them just give a brief introduction I mentioned who they are and the institutions, but to talk a bit about the projects that they're implementing, because that'll help set a context in terms of how they're responding to a few of the questions that we'll pose to them today. And so I'll start far to my left with Dr. Sharma.
Hello, I'm Indu Sharma. I'm from Hampton University. I've been there 14 years. And my area of expertise is environmental microbiology. Before Hampton, I was working on infectious diseases, especially malaria. So there was a big change in terms of changing my field completely. So I first time applied for the Research Initiation Award that got funded in 2016. And then I just closed it last year after having 2 or 3 no-cost extensions, just to give you a little perspective there. But that was also because we were in the pandemic and had a lot of challenges at that time. Last year, we got funded for Targeted Infusion Project, so I'm in the kind of a mix of that. And I also have Excellence in Research Award. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Indu. Good morning, everyone. I am Anshu Arora. I'm the Associate Professor of Marketing in the School of Business and Public Administration in the University of the District of Columbia. My background is very interesting. I have an electrical engineering, plus I have my MBA and my PhD in marketing and technology. And thanks to the NSF grants, and I would definitely like to thank Dr. Carlita and Dr. Leroy Jones here for getting me into something that I would love to do in my career. So I'm actually a marketing professor, but I wanted to go into this field of social robots and really see the impact of these social robots on the high schoolers who are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And I was able to do it thanks to that Research Initiation Award that I received in 2021. So I have 3 active NSF grants that I'm working on right now. There's a targeted infusion project that deals with logistics and supply chains, something that's very, very in focus right now. I'm sure you all must have heard President Biden's speech last night, where he talked about supply chains and he talked about disruption. And he said that supply chains in America should start and originate in America. So that's where our program became very important for the School of Business and the School of Engineering and even the College of Arts and Sciences at UDC. So I'll talk more about it as we discuss it more. And then my third grant is into sustainable fintech, financial technology, clean technology. So I work in diverse areas thanks to National Science Foundation, and I'm here to talk to you more about this. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Dr. Peters.
Good morning to everyone. I'm Sheila Peters from Fisk University. My background is clinical psychology, and within our infusion project, we are focused on really doing multidisciplinary research and really transforming our curriculum. I was a co-PI when our PI went to another university in that regard. And so many of our dynamic professors in STEM have multiple grants. However, in the social and behavioral sciences, we are just beginning that process. We are grateful for the opportunity, and we are in a position to be able to really create more multidisciplinary discourse for faculty, for students, and helping students to see what the career opportunities are when we get out of our silos.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Eddington.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Maurice Eddington from Florida A&M University. And we actually are on our 3rd implementation project. And our team has used each activity to focus on a different aspect of STEM retention and faculty development. Looking at, the infrastructure, looking at the student development aspect, now currently taking a more broad-based institutional-wide approach to changing how we as a university think about and approach STEM instruction, student learning, and our overall institutional framework. So looking forward to share some of those details with you all.
Thank you very much. So our first question, I guess, is really more of a request for information from our panel, is to think of, I call this a 3-2-1 exercise. 3 successes, 2 opportunities for growth, and perhaps 1 wish that you may think of. And I'd like to begin with Dr. Aurora.
Okay, great. Well, I'm so glad I'm answering this question because there's also sort of making me prepare for my final report for the grants. I'd like to talk about my targeted infusion project first. That's the project on STEM business focus, logistics and international trade analytics. That's the title of my project. That was given to me in 2019, so I received that award in 2019. So obviously I'm in the no cost extension period right now. Of course, when we started this, there was a LIT concentration or the LIT minor degree program. LIT is actually Logistics and International Trade Analytics program that we have at UDC. We started it all went great, and suddenly we were in the midst of pandemic, and things that we had planned was not, we cannot make it happen just because we have an international trade trip that was planned as a part of the NSF grant. And now we cannot take our students to China or to UK. And our biggest success came in 2022 last year when for the first time, 6 of our UDC students traveled to UK, and they were actually at Nottingham Trent University in Nottingham, UK. For those of you who don't know what is Nottingham Trent University, it's actually the top 5 research universities in the UK. It's a Queen's Award winner for sustainability, which means anything that they do has sustainability integrated in their curriculum. So our students were actually exposed to things like sustainability, of course, design thinking, design innovations, international fashion marketing, branding, and so on. And just to tell you a little bit about our students, the 6 students that traveled, 2 of them never had passports. So they had never traveled outside the country, so that was something new for them, completely a new global exposure. And then we have students whose ages range from 21 years old to 51 years old. So the 51-year-old student was actually there because she wanted to inspire her kids and her grandkids to take this trip in the future. So really the opportunity there for the students was that they were now truly becoming the global citizens of today and tomorrow. So that was something, especially for those who never had passports, who had never traveled outside the city. For them, it was a big deal. So that was a big success that I would say we had as a part of this grant. Coming to my Research Initiation Award, which is into social robots. So the title for that is Smarter Project. So we call it Smarter because there's an acronym for that. This is a social motivation approach for rehabilitation through educational robotics. Again, when I wrote this, it was more for me as a mid-career faculty looking for something of my area of passion. And social robots are my area of passion. If you understand it more, I have a PhD in social media. So my PhD topic was consumer navigation behavior in hypermedia, computer-mediated environments. That's completely technology, right? And this was in 2004, where there was a lot of impetus on social media, but the term social media was not invented in 2004, by the way, because Facebook and everyone else came in 2006. So I could see the same thing. Like at that time in 2004, there was a lot of emphasis on technology, internet networking, but not much happening in the field of social media or human-computer interaction. The same thing is happening today. A lot of impetus, a lot of things are happening in artificial intelligence, in deep learning, in machine learning, but not much is happening in the field of human-robot interaction or social robots, where we are trying to see how social robots or how people respond to social robots. Can we have empathy in the humans when they interact with social robots? So that was the intent of my project, but the success came in terms of the social impact of it, because we were looking at students with autism spectrum disorder. Again, the research shows that the early and the middle school students are all covered because, a lot of us as researchers, we work on them. But when it comes to the high schoolers, somehow we leave their hands. So we don't even bother about them. And that was our focus. So where, we were looking at the DC public school system, McKinley Tech High Schools, a very high-functioning school, where we have these students with autism spectrum disorder, and now we're using social robots who are interacting with them, gauging their responses, and the students are enjoying it. So that was a social impact, which I never anticipated to begin with, but it's actually created that. And that led me to write the opportunity that came from there is that I have written my Excellence in Research Award, because now we have so much of demand from these high schools in Washington, D.C., who wants to see the response of how their students interact with robots. So that was something as a success that I would classify, and the opportunity as well. My third success is more of a personal one that came on October 7, 2022, where I won the 2022 Woman of the Color Technology STEM Award just because of my work in social robotics. So a big thanks to National Science Foundation. Again, Dr. Leroy Jones have been very instrumental. I know I bothered him so many times. And same with Dr. Carlita Page Anderson. So I'm sure they know my face before even I met them in person. So thank you very much for guiding me through this. But really, as PIs, I would definitely encourage each one of you to please meet your program directors, because they can really change things the way, it's important. So it's really changed my career, my trajectory. And I would definitely, I really appreciate National Science Foundation. So the wish I think that I have is that the HBCU-UP program continues forever, because this is very instrumental for the HBCUs that we have. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll continue with the same question for Dr. Peters.
As I mentioned earlier, when we talk in our particular project, we're really focused on multidisciplinary education in regard to that. And so one of the great outcomes that we've experienced, we will have our first student graduating in May. It's a joint major in psychology and computer science. This curriculum development really helped to foster that student, and there are other students who are looking at this individual and working alongside him and seeing opportunities for themselves. We targeted a computer science course that we really looked at machine learning in that context. We targeted in psychology a cognitive psychology course where we introduced psychology majors. Through the program, summer research and research during the year, particularly with the pandemic, gave students a tangible opportunity to apply their skills. And so often at the undergraduate level, as we are aware, students are concerned about their academic requirements. But without that research experience early on, many times our students don't have that sustained experience to really do the deep thinking. This builds off of our last quality enhancement plan, which was focused on critical thinking, and our current quality enhancement plan is computational thinking. So at the same time, this project begins to mirror what we're trying to do from an institutional level in that regard. I would say in the context of some of the growth opportunities is that we are still dealing, of course, in our mission with undergraduate students as well as graduate students, but over 50% of our students being first generation. And so part of our challenge is being able to identify students early enough so that they have multiple semesters and hopefully multiple years to not only engage in the research process, but to be able to come out with a product themselves, even though it's part of a larger initiative. Otherwise, it is a quick experience. They learn some things, but without being able to create closure to whatever their project is, sometimes they come away feeling as though it's work left undone. So that requires us as faculty to figure out what can they accomplish within their commitment. So I think we're learning that we really need to identify students earlier, mentor them, and give them multiple opportunities in regard to that. Lastly, it has helped us as faculty to be able to collaborate more. We all understand some of the challenges and the privileges we have at historically Black colleges. There's still only 24 hours in the day and 7 days a week. And so we can all get caught up in our silos. So it's just really important for us to develop learning communities so that we can talk across discipline. And so we now have students that are working with faculty. We have a data science and social justice class offered this semester with 40 students. We're a small HBCU, so that is a large number of students that are engaged within that. We also have faculty that are working with citizen review boards, looking at institutional data, whether it has to do with voting patterns, whether it has to do with mass incarceration. We had a group of students that worked on a Memphis project where we were looking at surveillance of activists within their particular jurisdiction. So we have students that are now becoming passionate about research because it's dealing with real life issues that they are facing in their respective community and that we are confronting on a national level.
Thank you so much. Dr. Eddington, if I may shift our question, especially in the essence of time we have for our period here. As we think about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, all of our institutions had to make adjustments in one way or another. And even now on this side of the pandemic, a lot of those adjustments are still in place. Can you talk a bit about what the impact has been on your campus, in particular for your particular project, what you've learned, and how are you operating today as a result of much of that?
No, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, at FAMU, just like at all other institutions, the pandemic has had a significant impact on how we operate through the lens of our projects. On the front end of the pandemic, right, as you all probably experienced, everything stopped, right? And I mean, it just abruptly stopped, and then we had to take several months to rethink about around how could we continue to make progress, because many of our activities were conceived, right, with the traditional in-person, personal touch, personal engagement type of approach. And then one thing that happened, this thread is related to the question about impact. As we pivoted as an institution, our project was very pivotal in helping the institution respond in terms of training faculty, because one of the things that we have done with our projects is kind of use them as a crucible. So each of our implementation projects has allowed us as a team to study and evaluate things that are effective, best practices. And then we've been able to leverage that as an institution because we've served in administrative roles, many of our team members. We've implemented and adopted a lot of our HBCU-UP practices at the institution. And so we had a track record of doing that before, because I was previously served as dean and then provost, and now recently took on a role as COO. So I've taken advantage of those opportunities to pull what worked from our projects. And we have the team members in key places. Our one PI is the head of faculty development at the university. One co-PI is over student success and academic affairs. And so we very strategically say, what's working here on the projects, let's put it in place. We started a freshman studies unit because we had a focus on first year STEM retention. So when COVID hit, we said we have to train the faculty. Well, we have a PI, co-PI, who has gotten a lot of experience on this grant, and we threw him into the water and said, you need to help train faculty to teach online. And so he leveraged what he had been doing for us and really led the charge at the institution, right? And so now as we're not through the pandemic, but we're on another side in a different phase, what we've seen on the grant side is the institution is still operating in a virtual world with respect to meetings, right? We're back on campus, so we're in Florida, if you didn't know. We are back on campus 100%, but we still operate in terms of meetings essentially virtually. And so we're still having an issue with touching the students outside of the classroom and faculty outside of the classrooms. We found that Zoom faculty development sessions are very effective because the attendance skyrocketed when we went to Zoom. But we still think that there's some things that are missing, right? And so we're trying to figure out how to have that perfect balance of leveraging the technology, the Zoom, to get the participation levels up, but getting back to having faculty be more comfortable coming to our center, interacting with our team, and kind of having a more hands-on approach. And then just overall, last point is, institutionally, the morale and the vibe is still not where it was pre-COVID, right? I'm trying to get my arms around this dynamic that we're seeing, but the energy level is off. That's how I say it. And so it's trying to reinvigorate the mindsets across the campus and our STEM faculty. We actually have several in this room here right now from FAMU STEM faculty. Trying to get them and keep encouraging them and motivating them, and get that excitement back that we had. So we're still dealing with the challenges.
Okay, thank you. Thank you much for sharing. And Dr. Sharma, I'll pose our final question to you. What advice do you have for the National Science Foundation regarding its support of HBCUs?
So maybe increasing the award size a little bit, because a lot of us don't have like a technician support, especially in sciences, to prep the lab or TA. So having like I'm not asking a whole lot, but enough to hire a technician or support a graduate student who can work as a TA in that areas. Another is sabbatical support for some of us. So there are few, I think, RFAs out there, but they put you in the box. So kind of like opening those up. So when I'm talking about the sabbatical, so one thing we forget is the cost of living, and a lot of us have families. When you are going to another city or town for sabbatical, you are also going to take your family. You forget about the cost of living there. And somebody who's making $50,000, $60,000, or $70,000 a year cannot support their family in a different town, still maintaining a house in your hometown. So I think we need to acknowledge these challenges and work to kind of support those.
Okay. Very good.
And one thing that we were talking about last night with my colleagues is, and you mentioned that, having these international collaboration with other institutions. So I was very glad to see that one for Brazil.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Please join me in thanking our panelists for sharing on today. This was an opportunity to take to heart some of the guidance from our Assistant Director, Dr. Moore, about spending time to hear from you. We know this session was designed to be a business meeting where you heard from us, but we wanted to incorporate some opportunities to hear from each other and for us to hear from you. So really thank them for coming, and some of them made last-minute adjustments to be able to join and serve on our panel today. So my heartfelt thanks and appreciation for each of you for serving and for the work that you do. With the time permitting, we do have asked Dr. Carlita Page Anderson to bring some closing remarks on behalf of the HBCU-UP program. She serves as the lead program officer for this work, and I can't tell you how wonderful it has been and much of a pleasure it has been to serve with her. Not only is she extremely passionate about this work, she's exceptionally organized and is a great leader and a great advocate for the work that we are all doing. So please join me in thanking her and welcoming her to come and share a few closing remarks for our session today.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you again for your time and attention during this session. I figured I would use this time to address some of the questions that we've received from our virtual audience. So thank you to the virtual participants for remaining engaged. The first of which is a question: are Catalyst Awards eligible for no-cost extensions? The answer is all NSF awards are eligible for no-cost extensions, regardless of the type. Next question: how soon can PIs apply for supplements after being funded? All awards are eligible for supplemental funding. However, we did underscore previously that looking at your spend rate is one of the primary components that we use to determine and evaluate and assess the feasibility of the supplement request. So while it is permissible, in essence, you should talk to your program officer about the likelihood of that being considered. Next question: by percentage, how much should a grant have to be spent out before one can apply? I appreciate the enthusiasm regarding the supplemental requests, and we are thankful that the National Science Foundation allows this as an opportunity for the community to address items that Dr. Sharma mentioned, that may be unforeseen circumstances that you might be able to account for as your project evolves. And so that percentage is considered on a case-by-case basis. So reach out to your program officer. Next question, how long can I get an extension of my grant after awarded the 3 years? I think we had that question previously. Up to 3 years. The first one is certainly administrative, where you just kind of inform us. But after that, there is an approval process for evaluating no-cost extension requests. And then the last question, I believe, I'm not sure right now if this is for the NSF team or if it was for the panelists. And so there are two here. And so the question is, could you share 2 lessons from the pandemic that we should all keep with us in running our labs going forward? No pressure, no pressure. I will ponder this question with you, but if you have thoughts about any advice that you would give to the PI community in continuing their work, what would you offer?
I'm answering this as an administrator to the faculty PIs. Be very aggressive and persistent about communicating your needs in light of how you've been impacted by the pandemic. I would just stress, I'm a faculty member, I'm a chemist by training, but as an administrator, I don't know and have not been as sensitive to some of the individual challenges until a faculty member has approached me. I had a good conversation with a colleague at breakfast. He brought something to my attention this morning. And we're on the same campus, but he has to reach out to tell me, and then my light bulb goes off. I think as faculty and PIs, we think the administration sees what we see on a daily basis, right? That's pre-pandemic. With the pandemic, I'm just encouraging you all to let us know what we need to do to help you and be persistent about that.
I would just quickly say that I think that because of the virtual reality that we all share because of the pandemic, we need to inform and train faculty and students how to professionally be in a virtual space. Because we have, and as was mentioned, we had students, everything shut down, and probably, and I love all of our students, we probably didn't want to see really where they were at the time when they were online. However, so many more applications, so many more interviews are virtual, and we need to be very specific with students and faculty of how do you project yourself professionally, how do you engage professionally within a virtual space, because that's not going to go away, and they have to learn how to navigate that. When it was an emergency situation, that's one thing, but we've got to shift that, and your face has to be seen, you have to be seen in a professional manner, and even when you are not interested, you still have to look interested virtually.
Thank you. There's one question, I'll take one more question, and then we'll close it out. Yes, sir. So if you didn't hear the question is there a role for the National Science Foundation to implement a maximum indirect cost rate for institutions? At present, that negotiation is between the universities and the federal government, and so the National Science Foundation, I don't know if we're positioned to make any changes in that regard, but I encourage you to understand that the institution where you serve likely can utilize those benefits to ensure that the environment where you are engaged in that work is supported in the way that you need it, right? And so if that's a question, I think that that's a conversation to be had between you and your administrators at the institution about how those resources are being dispersed for the benefit of that project in and of itself. So unfortunately, no, but I certainly understand the question and encourage you to remain in conversation. And so as I transition to those closing remarks, I'll just add one additional response to the question about continuing your lab activity post-pandemic, or just continuing the work in general. One theme that I've been able to extract while engaging with you all today is the importance of communication, right? I think during this time of the pandemic, much of our interactions has been limited. It's been limited to availability in a virtual space. And so how we understand what we need and then communicate what we need is something that I think is significantly important to continue the work. And then, of course, how you show up and how you present yourself to be able to have those requests considered. So with that, I know that it is 11:30, and so we need to close, but understand that we're looking forward to tomorrow, when we then come back together again for a PI discussion as a community. But we invite you to, of course, enjoy and engage in the rest of the meeting, and thank you for your time and attention.